cast out into darkness. The Galactic Council had long ruled the galaxy with cold precision. Their vast network of worlds stretched across the stars, bound together by a common purpose: order, peace, stability. But Earth was nothing to them, just a primitive world, unworthy of inclusion in the galaxy's grand design. To them, humans were an insignificant species, a chaotic force waiting to destroy themselves. And so, when the humans dared to make their case before the Galactic Council, it was met with nothing but disdain. Captain Marcus Kane stood before the Council's towering presence, his fists clenched at his sides. He had never felt smaller in his life. His Earth delegation was a small group of diplomats, scientists, and military officers. They had traveled across the stars to present their case. Humanity had made significant strides in space exploration. They had reached a point where they could contribute to the galaxy's prosperity, not just as bystanders, but as active members of the galactic order. Yet, all he had received for his efforts was mockery and rejection. The chamber was silent, except for the low hum of the ambient energy that powered the Council's vast meeting hall. The high seats were occupied by the alien leaders, each one more powerful and ancient than any human could imagine. Their eyes glowed with an eerie light, their voices echoing through the chamber with a depth that made the walls vibrate. "You humans," a voice boomed. The speaker was a towering alien, his features sharp and his skin like polished stone. His name was Zorath, the Supreme Commander of the Galactic Council's military forces. He looked down at Captain Kane with disdain. "You think yourselves fit to join the greater Galactic Union. Your planet is a chaotic mess. Your species is divided, frail, and ignorant. You are a danger to the very fabric of the galaxy." Kane's heart sank. He knew Earth had its flaws, but they had grown. They had worked hard to build a future among the stars. But Zorath's words struck like daggers, cutting deep into his pride. He had come to represent Earth's potential, yet here he was, standing before an arrogant alien who couldn't see past his own narrow view of the galaxy. The other council members, seated on their high thrones, whispered among themselves. Some sneered, others shook their heads as if in pity. One of the more kindly-looking aliens, a female from the Targoth system, spoke up. Her voice was gentle, but her words carried the same weight as Zorath's. "Captain Kane, I understand your desire to be part of the galactic community," she said, her eyes soft. "But the Council has agreed. Earth is not ready. Your species has not yet evolved to understand the complexities of galactic politics. You are not welcome among us." Kane's stomach twisted. The finality in her voice made it clear. There was no room for negotiation. Earth's request had been denied. His people would be cast aside, just as they had feared. As the Council continued to deliberate, Kane's mind raced. This was it. This was the moment that would define humanity's future. He could feel the weight of history on his shoulders, and yet there was no recourse. They had failed. Their dreams of unity with the stars had been shattered. Suddenly, a sharp voice cut through the quiet room. "Let us make one thing clear," Zorath said, his tone colder than before. "Humanity is not a member of the Galactic Union. Your species will be exiled. You are to be cut off from all trade, all alliances, and all diplomatic channels. You will be left to your own devices. You will no longer be welcome in the galaxy." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Exile. Rejection. These were not just the words of a single leader. This was the decision of the Galactic Council, a decision that would send Earth spiraling into darkness. Kane could feel his breath catch in his throat. He wanted to argue, to shout, to demand justice. But in the face of the Council's power, all his words felt meaningless. His gaze swept across the faces of his fellow diplomats. Some looked defeated, others held their heads high, refusing to let the rejection crush them. But deep down, they all knew the truth. This was a crushing blow. As the Council's decision was announced, the chamber doors opened, signaling the end of the meeting. Kane and his team were escorted out by 2 armored guards, their expressions stone cold. They were no longer welcome in the presence of the council. They were nothing. As the heavy doors closed behind them, sealing them off from the cold, indifferent room, Kane felt a wave of anger wash over him. They had been cast aside, rejected by the very galaxy they had once hoped to join. The galaxy had judged them, and they had deemed humanity unworthy. But Kane was not ready to accept this fate. Outside, the cold expanse of space stretched out before them. The Earth delegation gathered around, silent and solemn. Some heads were bowed in despair, others in thought. Kane's heart burned with a quiet fire. "We may be exiled," he muttered under his breath, "but we are not done." He turned to face his team, his voice rising with determination. "Humanity will rise again. The Galactic Council may think they've broken us, but they've made a grave mistake. Earth will build its own future. We will create an empire of our own, and we will return stronger than they could ever imagine. The stars may be far away, but we will make them our own. This is not the end. This is just the beginning." His words echoed through the cold air of space, but to him, they were a promise. He knew the road ahead would be difficult. The galaxy would not simply welcome humanity back. But this exile, this rejection, it had ignited something deep inside him. Something that no alien council could ever take away. And with that, Captain Kane made a vow. Earth would rise, not as a beggar knocking on the doors of the galaxy, but as an unstoppable force, ready to claim its place among the stars. The Phoenix would be their first step. And from there, nothing at all, could stand in their way. The galaxy was vast, cold, and indifferent. Earth had been cast out, exiled from the stars and abandoned by the very beings humanity had hoped to join. But even as the Galactic Council delivered their harsh verdict, Earth's brightest minds were already working in the shadows. While the stars seemed distant and unreachable, Earth's people had always found ways to rise above their limitations. And now, humanity's greatest challenge was about to become its most defining triumph. Captain Marcus Kane, now back on Earth, stood in a hidden underground facility. The air was thick with the scent of machinery and the hum of active engines. He stared at the massive holographic display in front of him, showing the blueprint for something extraordinary, a ship unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. His eyes gleamed with a mixture of awe and resolve. Around him, Earth's brightest engineers, scientists, and military strategists worked together in secret. The world had no allies, no resources from the stars, but they had something more important: determination. Earth would create its own future, and this ship was the key to that future. For years, Earth had been building, innovating, and quietly advancing in secret. They had hidden their most advanced technology from the Council's prying eyes. The resources of Earth were vast, but they had to be used wisely. The design on the holographic screen was the culmination of years of work, the embodiment of humanity's desire to rise again. It was more than just a warship. It was the symbol of Earth's defiance, a statement to the galaxy that they had underestimated the human spirit. The Phoenix, as the ship was called, was not just a single vessel. It was the first of many, but it would make the greatest impact. The ship's design was sleek and aggressive, built for speed and firepower. But it was not just the ship that made the Phoenix so special. It was the technology inside it, technology developed by Earth's finest minds. The ship's weapons were unlike anything seen before, and its stealth capabilities were unmatched. The Phoenix could strike without warning, leaving nothing but devastation in its wake. Captain Kane turned to face his team. He had led humanity's exiled ambassadors to the stars, but this mission was different. Now he was leading Earth's greatest secret project, and he knew what was at stake. This ship, and the fleet that would follow, would be Earth's ticket back to the stars. And more importantly, it would be their weapon to show the galaxy just how wrong they had been to cast them out. "We have no allies," Kane said, his voice firm and filled with purpose. "We have no trade routes, no support. But we have something they can never take away from us: our will to survive. We will make them regret casting us aside. This ship, and the fleet we built from it, will be our answer. The galaxy will know that Earth is not weak. Earth is not finished. Earth is unstoppable. The room erupted into quiet murmurs of agreement. There was a shared understanding in the air. The weight of their mission was heavy. But they were ready. The time for hiding was over. Humanity would fight for its place among the stars. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The Phoenix took shape piece by piece, its hull growing like a giant from the depths of the underground facility. Every inch of it was designed to maximize efficiency, power, and stealth. The ship's engines hummed with life, and its weapons systems were tested and refined. The crew, handpicked from the finest military minds on Earth, underwent rigorous training. They were ready. The ship was ready. But even as the Phoenix neared completion, the Council had no idea what was coming. They believed Earth was beaten, that humanity would simply fade into obscurity. They could not have been more wrong. On Earth's surface, life went on as usual. People went about their daily routines, unaware of the enormous transformation happening beneath their feet. The governments of the world had come together, united by the common goal of survival. They had been exiled by the galaxy, but Earth was not a planet that would fall easily. As humanity's new empire began to take shape, Earth's people began to see themselves differently. They were not simply exiles anymore. They were survivors, and they were about to prove it. Captain Kane sat in the command chair of the Phoenix, staring at the stars beyond. The ship was ready. His crew was ready. And Earth was ready to rise again. The journey ahead would not be easy. There would be battles, losses, and obstacles. But Kane knew that the power of their will, the strength of humanity's resolve, would carry them through. Ready for launch, Captain. The ship's commander, Lieutenant Sarah Cole, called out from the communications panel. All systems are go. Kane's heart raced with anticipation. The moment of truth had arrived. He stood up, his gaze fixed on the vast emptiness of space beyond. The Phoenix was Earth's first step toward returning to the stars. It would be their first strike, a message to the galaxy that humanity was not finished. And with that, the mission began. "Let's show the galaxy what Earth is made of," Kane said, his voice calm but filled with unshakable confidence. The engines roared to life, and the Phoenix shot upward into the void. It was a symbol of humanity's defiance, its refusal to accept the Council's judgment. As the ship left Earth's atmosphere and entered the cold, endless black of space, Captain Kane felt a surge of pride. This was only the beginning. The galaxy would never forget Earth's exile, but they would soon learn to fear the rise of its empire. The first step had been taken. The Phoenix had launched, and with it, humanity's fate had been sealed. They would return to the stars, not as beggars seeking a seat at the table, but as an empire in their own right. And the galaxy, it would tremble in their wake. The Phoenix cut through space like a shadow, its sleek form barely visible against the vast emptiness of the cosmos. The ship's stealth technology allowed it to remain hidden from the prying eyes of the Galactic Council's fleets. For now, Earth's new empire was still a secret, and the Phoenix was humanity's spear, silent and deadly, ready to strike without warning. Captain Marcus Kane stood at the helm, his hands gripping the command console. He was focused, eyes narrowed as the stars stretched out before him. Every inch of space was a potential threat, every movement calculated. He knew that the Phoenix was humanity's first step into a galaxy that had cast them aside, and he wouldn't let this moment slip through their fingers. They were no longer powerless. They were a force that would demand the galaxy's attention. "Status report," Kane called out. Lieutenant Sarah Cole's voice came through the comms, clear and calm. "All systems operating at full capacity, Captain. We're approaching the Zeta sector, just as planned. The Council's patrol fleet should be on a routine sweep in this area. We'll have the element of surprise." The Phoenix had been designed to be faster than anything the Council could track. Its engines allowed it to slip through the galaxy's vast networks of surveillance without leaving a trace. The ship's weapon systems were unlike anything the Council had ever seen, powerful enough to tear through the toughest alien defenses, yet precise enough to disable an entire fleet in seconds. Kane's fingers drummed lightly on the console as he considered their next move. They had no alliances, no reinforcements. Everything depended on the success of this mission. This strike would send a message to the Galactic Council. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. Now, they would learn to fear them. Approaching target coordinates, Cole continued. Enemy fleet in position. The tension in the room was palpable. The crew had spent months preparing for this moment. They knew what was at stake. The Zeta sector wasn't a high-profile area. It was just another part of the galaxy that the Council had chosen to patrol. But for humanity, it was the perfect place to make their mark. A quiet, unnoticed strike. Something that would spark the beginning of their rise. Kane's eyes narrowed as he looked at the holographic display in front of him. The Zeta fleet was spread out across the sector, seemingly unaware of the Phoenix's approach. They were too focused on their routine patrols, too confident in their dominance. They thought Earth was nothing, that humanity was nothing. But Earth was about to prove them wrong. "Engage stealth mode," Kane ordered, his voice steady. The ship's engines powered down slightly as the Phoenix became even harder to detect, slipping seamlessly into the shadows of space. The crew moved quickly and quietly, preparing for the strike. Each member had their role. Every action had been rehearsed to perfection. "Enemy fleets on our radar," Cole said. "They've deployed scout ships, but they haven't picked us up yet." Kane's heart raced. The first phase was working. They were in position. It was time to strike. "Activate weapon systems," Kane commanded. "We're going to hit them fast and hard. No warnings." The Phoenix's weapon systems hummed to life. A moment later, the first shot rang out. A brilliant beam of energy fired from the ship's forward cannons, striking the scout ship in the distance. The alien vessel didn't stand a chance. It exploded in a flash of light, leaving nothing but debris floating in the void. The soundless destruction was swift and efficient. The enemy fleet reacted instantly, their sensors detecting the blast. The Phoenix had given away its position, but it didn't matter. The ship was already moving at full speed, darting between the scattered enemy vessels, delivering quick, deadly strikes. The Council's ships were no match for the power of the Phoenix. They were sluggish, unaware of the kind of technology Earth had developed in secret. The Phoenix's weapons sliced through enemy shields like paper, leaving the ships vulnerable to the next round of attacks. One by one, the Council's fleet began to fall. Some ships tried to flee, others attempted to return fire, but the Phoenix was always one step ahead, moving too fast for the enemy to retaliate. "Captain, we've disabled their communications," Cole reported, her voice steady. "They won't be able to call for reinforcements." Kane's lips curled into a grim smile. This was exactly what they needed. The Galactic Council would never know what hit them. "Keep it up," Kane said. "No survivors. We leave nothing but ashes." The Phoenix unleashed another barrage of weapons, its cannons firing one after another with deadly precision. The enemy fleet was in chaos. Ships collided in a desperate attempt to escape, but it was too late. The Phoenix moved with the speed of a ghost, striking again and again. Within minutes, the once proud Zeta fleet was nothing more than a collection of floating wreckage. Kane's pulse was steady as he observed the destruction on the ship's main view screen. The galaxy would now know the truth. Humanity was not weak. Earth had become a force that could not be ignored. "We've done it," Cole said, sounding a little breathless. "The Zeta fleet is neutralized." Kane nodded, his expression hard. This was just the beginning. The message had been sent, but there was much more to do. The Council would retaliate, of course. They would not allow a planet they had exiled to strike at their fleets without consequence. But that was fine. Earth was ready for whatever came next. "We're not done yet," Kane said, his voice cold with determination. "We've made our point, but the real fight begins now. We'll hit them where it hurts. The galaxy may have cast us aside, but humanity will rise again. We will strike, and we will not stop until the stars belong to us." As the Phoenix glided through the debris of the fallen fleet, the crew exchanged looks of quiet satisfaction. They had won a battle, but the war had only just begun. And with the Phoenix at their back, they would take the fight to the galaxy's doorstep. The message was clear. Humanity was back. The Phoenix drifted silently through space, its engines dimmed as it moved deeper into uncharted territory. Captain Marcus Kane stood at the command center, his eyes scanning the holographic map of the galaxy. The Zeta fleet had been wiped out, but that was just the first step. Now, Earth's new empire had to send a message, one that could not be ignored. "We've made our point," Kane muttered, his voice low. He was speaking more to himself than to anyone else. "But we need to hit harder. We need the entire galaxy to know that Earth is no longer the underdog." The Phoenix was alone in the vast emptiness, surrounded by nothing but the cold vacuum of space. But it was no longer alone in its purpose. The crew, once part of a world that had been forgotten by the stars, now had a goal: to take back their place in the universe. And they would stop at nothing to achieve it. "Captain," Lieutenant Sarah Cole's voice broke his thoughts. She stepped forward, her face serious. "The Council is already starting to react. We've detected a message broadcast across multiple systems. They know we struck the Zeta fleet, and they're not happy." Kane looked at her, his gaze unwavering. "Let them be angry. They should be. We're just getting started." Sarah nodded, but there was concern in her eyes. "They're mobilizing their fleets. We've made an impact, but the galaxy's biggest players will not tolerate what we've done. They'll come after us with everything they've got." Kane's jaw clenched. He had expected this. The Galactic Council wasn't just an alliance of various alien races. It was the political force that ruled the known universe. To challenge them was to provoke the kind of retaliation that could annihilate entire worlds. But Earth had no choice. They had been exiled, dismissed, and forgotten. Now they were fighting not just for survival, but for their rightful place in the stars. "We've got to stay one step ahead," Kane said, turning back to the map. "The Phoenix is our spear, but we need to be more than just a single ship. We need to show them that Earth is not a fluke. We're an unstoppable force." Cole stepped up beside him, placing a hand on the console. "What's the plan?" Kane paused for a moment, considering their options. "We'll hit them where it hurts. Not just their fleets. Strike at their heart. We go to the heart of the Council's power. We take out their communications and disrupt their leadership." There was a sharp intake of breath from the crew. This was no longer just about military dominance. It was a full-scale assault on the very foundation of the Galactic Council's control over the galaxy. Sarah nodded. "I'll start gathering intel. We'll need to know where their leaders are, where the highest level of command resides." Kane turned his gaze to the view screen, watching as stars streaked by in a blur. This was the moment. There was no turning back now. They would strike at the Council's core, shaking it to its very foundations. Hours later, the Phoenix had slipped through the galaxy's outer rim, nearing one of the Galactic Council's hidden strongholds. It was a quiet place, shrouded in secrecy. Few knew of its exact location, but the crew of the Phoenix had been tracking it for weeks. They had found the coordinates hidden within the wreckage of the Zeta fleet, a small piece of intel that had led them here. "We're almost there," Cole reported, her fingers flying over the console as she double-checked the data. "The Council's main command center is located on a massive space station near the center of the galaxy. It's heavily guarded, but with the Phoenix's stealth capabilities, we should be able to approach undetected." Kane's mind raced. Taking out the heart of the Galactic Council wasn't going to be easy. But if they could shut down their communication networks, if they could cripple their leadership, the Council would be left in disarray. The galaxy would be thrown into chaos, and Earth's empire would rise. "Good," Kane said. Prep the crew. We'll be on the move within the hour. Approaching the space station, the Phoenix eased into position, cloaked and hidden within the dark folds of space. The massive space station loomed ahead, its countless docking bays and surveillance towers barely visible in the distance. Its defenses were formidable, but not enough to deter the crew of the Phoenix. They had already proven their ability to take down one fleet. Now they were about to take on something much larger, much more dangerous. "We've arrived," Cole said, her voice steady, "entering the station's sensor range in 5 minutes." Kane nodded. "Stay quiet. Don't give them anything. We'll be in and out." There was a sense of anticipation in the air. Everyone aboard the Phoenix knew what was at stake. This mission would either make or break humanity's future in the galaxy. If they succeeded, Earth would have the leverage it needed to reshape the universe in its image. If they failed, they would be crushed by the very power they sought to destroy. Kane turned to the rest of the crew. "We do this together, and we do it fast. We get in, we destroy their communication networks, and we leave before they even know what happened." The Phoenix glided closer to the station, slipping between the shadows. Kane could see the flashes of energy from distant patrol ships, their beams of light cutting through the darkness. But the Phoenix was faster, too fast for anyone to catch. "This is it," Kane muttered, his voice a mix of excitement and focus. "Let's show them who Earth really is." The Phoenix dropped out of stealth mode as they neared the station's central hub. The vast, intricate web of communication arrays and command stations lay just ahead. Kane's heart pounded in his chest as he gave the order. "Now hit them hard." The ship's weapons hummed to life, and a blinding flash of energy erupted from the forward cannons, targeting the primary communication relay. The station's alarms began blaring, but it was too late. The Phoenix had already launched its second round of attacks, crippling the station's mainframe and cutting off the Galactic Council's ability to send out any communications. The crew worked swiftly, hacking into the station's systems, planting charges on key infrastructure points, and wiping any traces of their presence. They were ghosts in the night, and in just moments, the station would be nothing more than a burning wreck. As the Phoenix pulled away, the explosion behind them lit up the dark expanse of space, a symbol of Earth's vengeance. "We did it," Sarah breathed as she watched the flames spread across the station. "The Council won't be able to recover from this." Kane's expression was hard, his eyes focused on the path ahead. "This is just the beginning. The galaxy hasn't seen anything yet. Earth is coming, and no one will stop us." The Galactic Council's command center was in chaos. High-ranking officials shouted over one another, scrambling to make sense of the sudden blackout. Their primary communication hub, one of the most secure stations in the galaxy, had been reduced to flames and debris. No warnings, no defenses triggered in time. The strike had been surgical, precise, and worst of all, it had come from Earth. The Council had underestimated them, dismissed them as insignificant after their exile. Now, those same humans were proving they were anything but weak. The destruction of the station was not just an attack, it was a declaration of war. In the darkness of space, the Phoenix moved swiftly, leaving no trace of its presence. The crew remained silent, watching as the aftermath of their strike played out on their holoscreens. The Council's fleets were scrambling to respond, but they were too slow. The damage was already done. Inside the ship, Captain Marcus Kane stood with arms crossed, his expression unreadable. His crew had done their part, executed the mission flawlessly, but there was no time to celebrate. This was only the beginning. Lieutenant Sarah Cole approached, her face tense. "We intercepted emergency transmissions before we left. They're blaming rogue mercenaries for the attack. They don't even know it was us yet." Kane's lips curled into a cold smile. "Good. Let them be confused for now. By the time they figure it out, we'll be 3 steps ahead." Sarah hesitated, glancing at the screens. "They'll come for us, Captain. The Council won't let this go." "They can try," Kane said, his voice firm. But Earth is no longer a broken world begging for scraps. We are something new, something they fear. The ship's engines rumbled as the Phoenix slipped into the darkness of uncharted space. Kane turned to his officers. We need to move quickly. This is our chance to build something stronger than Earth ever had before. A true empire. The word lingered in the air. Empire. For centuries, Earth had been ruled by alien politics, forced to submit to laws dictated by beings who saw them as lesser. But no longer. Now, they would shape their own destiny, and they would do it on their terms. Kane moved to the center console, bringing up a holographic display of Earth's remaining colonies. Many of them had been cut off after their exile, struggling to survive in isolation. But now, with the Council weakened, it was time to unite them. We start with the lost colonies, Kane said. They have ships, resources, people who still believe in Earth. If we can bring them together, we won't just be a rogue force. We'll be a nation. Sarah nodded, her fingers tapping on the controls. Some of them might resist. Not everyone will be eager to start a war with the Council. Kane's eyes hardened. Then we remind them what's at stake. The Council threw us away like we were nothing. If we don't rise, they'll make sure we stay nothing. The ship's course adjusted, setting a path toward the first colony on their list. A small outpost hidden on the edge of a dying star system. Kane had fought alongside some of the people stationed there before the exile. He knew they would listen. As the Phoenix approached, the colony's defenses activated. Energy turrets locked onto them, tracking their every move. A message crackled through the comms. Unidentified vessel, state your purpose or be fired upon. Kane stepped forward. This is Captain Marcus Kane of the Phoenix. We're here for Earth. Silence. Then, after a long pause, the defenses powered down. The docking bay lights turned green, granting them access. The crew exchanged glances. Kane smirked. Looks like they remember me. As the ship settled onto the landing platform, the crew prepared themselves. This was the first step, the beginning of something far greater than revenge. Earth was rising again, and this time, nothing would stand in their way. The colony was quiet when the Phoenix landed. The tall gray structures of the outpost stretched high against the backdrop of a dim, dying star. For a moment, everything seemed still, as if the entire place was holding its breath. There were no welcoming lights, no banners to signify that the people of Earth had returned. Only the cold, silent anticipation of what was about to come. Captain Marcus Kane stood at the airlock, his boots clanking on the metallic floor as he moved toward the exit. Behind him, his crew prepared to disembark, their faces filled with a mix of determination and nerves. This was their first real test outside the security of the Phoenix. They had taken down the Galactic Council's communication center. They had sent a message across the stars. But now, they had to convince the colonies that Earth was worth fighting for, that they weren't just a group of outcasts anymore. The hatch hissed open, and a blast of cold air greeted them as they stepped onto the colony's landing pad. The ground was hard and dry, a desolate stretch of barren rock. The colony's facilities were old, built long before the exile. Many of the buildings were in poor repair, the lights flickering weakly in the distance. It looked like a place that had been forgotten by time and the rest of the galaxy, a place where hope had withered away. "Captain, are you sure about this?" Lieutenant Sarah Cole's voice broke through his thoughts, and he turned to see her standing next to him, her eyes scanning the surroundings. These people, they haven't been in contact with Earth for years. We don't know if they'll accept us, or if they'll even believe we're truly back. Kane's jaw clenched. They'll believe it soon enough. We don't have time for doubt. The ground beneath them began to hum, a low vibration that sent shivers down their spines. The door on the far side of the platform slid open, and a figure stepped out of the shadows. It was a man, his face weathered and worn by years of isolation. His clothes were simple but functional, a blend of scavenged materials and old Earth uniforms. "Well, well," the man said, his voice gravelly from years of disuse. I thought I'd seen everything in this forsaken place, but I never thought I'd see Earth's people show up again." Kane stepped forward, his eyes meeting the man's. "Captain Marcus Kane, we're here to bring Earth back, to take it back from the Council and build something stronger, together." The man's gaze flickered to the phoenix in the distance, its sleek form standing out starkly against the dull backdrop of the colony. His expression was unreadable for a moment, but then, with a deep sigh, he spoke. "You're asking a lot. This place, we've been abandoned for so long. Earth's not the same anymore. The galaxy doesn't care about us. If you're here to make promises, save your breath. We've heard it all before." Kane didn't flinch. He had expected this. He had expected resistance. But Earth's strength was not just in its technology, it was in its people. And these people had been forgotten by the galaxy, cast aside by the same forces that had now come to fear them. "We're not asking for your trust," Kane said, his voice steady and calm. "We're here to show you that Earth is no longer helpless. The Council made a mistake when they exiled us. But we've grown stronger. We've built a fleet that can take on anything they throw at us. And we need your help." The man's eyes narrowed, but he didn't speak. His mind was racing, calculating risks and consequences. This wasn't just a reunion of lost souls. It was a chance to change the course of the galaxy. The man's gaze softened as he took a step closer to Kane. "What's the plan, then?" he asked quietly. "What do you need from us?" "We need you to unite the colonies," Kane replied. "Earth's strength lies in its people. If we can bring everyone together, if we can stop running from the galaxy and start fighting back, we can take control. We don't need permission from the Council. We need to take what's ours." The man looked toward the sky, as if searching for answers in the cold void of space. He had been waiting for something like this for years. Earth's people had once been proud, powerful. They had ruled the stars before, long before the Council came into power. But now, those days seemed like a distant memory. "You really think it's possible?" the man asked, his voice tinged with doubt. "I know it is," Kane replied. "We've already made them tremble. The Council doesn't know what's coming, but they will." The man studied Kane's face for a moment, and then, with a reluctant nod, he extended his hand. "Then let's do it. Let's take back Earth." Kane grasped the man's hand firmly, sealing the unspoken agreement between them. It wasn't going to be easy. There would be challenges ahead. There would be battles, losses, and doubts. But this was their chance. This was the beginning of Earth's rise. As the man turned to lead them inside the colony's command center, the rest of the crew followed. Each of them had a role to play. Each of them had a part in this new empire that was being born from the ashes of the past. Inside the command center, they gathered around a large table, and the man introduced them to the leaders of the colony. There was tension in the air, a quiet uncertainty about what was happening. Some of the leaders were skeptical, others seemed outright hostile. They had been on their own for so long, disconnected from the rest of Earth's history, that they had lost faith in the idea of unity. But Kane wasn't there to negotiate or beg for their support. He was there to show them what was possible. "We have a fleet," Kane began, his voice carrying weight. "We have the power to crush the Council and take back what is rightfully ours. But we need you. We need every colony, every outpost, to unite with us. Together, we will show the galaxy what Earth is capable of." One of the leaders, a tall woman with striking red hair, stood up, her face stern. "And what makes you think we should follow you? After all these years of isolation, of being abandoned, why should we trust that Earth won't just repeat its mistakes?" Kane met her gaze without flinching. "Because this time, Earth has something different. We have the strength to fight back, and we have the will to win." There was a long silence. The tension hung thick in the air. But then, slowly, one by one, the leaders nodded. They had seen enough. They had heard enough. Earth was back, and they were ready to stand with it. As the meeting concluded, Kane stepped outside into the cold air once more, looking up at the stars. The Phoenix hovered in the distance, a symbol of the new Earth, a symbol of defiance, of strength. The galaxy had made its mistake. It had underestimated humanity. Now it would show the universe just how wrong they had been. Earth is rising. Kane whispered to himself, the weight of the journey ahead pressing down on him. And no one will stop us. The stars seemed to burn brighter than ever as Captain Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the Phoenix, staring out into the infinite expanse of space. The crew had come a long way since their exile, and now, with Earth's first colony standing by their side, they had become a force that could no longer be ignored. It had taken time, trust, and the relentless will of every human who had joined the movement. But the pieces were falling into place. Captain, Lieutenant Sarah Cole's voice cut through the silence, drawing Kane's attention away from the stars. We've received word from the other colonies. They're on their way. A smile tugged at Kane's lips. The first steps had been the hardest. Convincing the scattered remnants of Earth's colonies to join forces had been no easy feat. But now, it seemed, the galaxy's forgotten children were finally coming together. Humanity was no longer broken, no longer divided. They were united by a singular purpose: to take back what the Galactic Council had stolen from them. They'll need to be ready, Kane said, his voice low but filled with determination. We don't have time to waste. The Council will retaliate soon enough, and when they do, we'll need to strike hard and fast. Sarah nodded, glancing at the holoscreen in front of her. We've calculated their response times. The Council is already mobilizing their fleets, but they don't know what they're up against. We've got the element of surprise. Surprise only lasts so long, Kane replied, his expression hardening. The longer we wait, the more time they have to prepare. We need to hit them before they can assemble their full force. He turned to the rest of the crew, his eyes meeting each one of theirs. These were his people now. They had fought beside him, bled beside him, and together they had built something powerful, something that would leave the Council trembling. Prepare for launch, Kane commanded. We're going to hit them hard. This is our moment. As the crew went to work, preparing the Phoenix for the next phase of their mission, Kane felt a surge of adrenaline. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It wasn't just about proving that Earth had been wronged. This was about the future of humanity, about reclaiming the stars and ensuring that no one, not even the most powerful empire in the galaxy, would ever be able to push Earth around again. The fleet of ships that had gathered from Earth's lost colonies was now a sight to behold. It wasn't large by galactic standards, but it was enough. The Phoenix led the charge, flanked by warships, transports, and fighters, all bearing the insignia of Earth's newfound empire. They were no longer the ragtag group of exiles they had once been. They were an army, an unstoppable force united under one banner. Kane watched the fleet's formation from the Phoenix's bridge, his heart pounding in his chest. It was a beautiful sight, the ships moving in perfect synchrony, ready to strike. They had come a long way from the days when Earth had been abandoned, left to fend for itself in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Now, they were poised to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. The comm system beeped, and Sarah's voice rang out. Captain, we're approaching the Council's outer defense perimeter. We have confirmation that their fleets are assembling. They're ready for us. Kane's jaw clenched. And we'll be ready for them. Signal the fleet. All ships prepare to engage. The tension in the air was palpable as the Phoenix and the rest of the fleet closed in on the Council's defenses. There were no grand speeches, no last words of warning. It was time for action. The Council had made a grave mistake in thinking Earth was weak, in thinking that they could destroy humanity's spirit. They had thought their power would silence them. Now, Earth was fighting back. Kane stood tall, his hands steady on the controls. The bridge was quiet except for the hum of machinery, the soft peeps of incoming data, and the occasional murmur from the crew. They were all waiting for the moment when the first shot would be fired. And then it came. The first burst of laser fire from the Phoenix's cannons ripped through space, tearing apart a Council warship in a brilliant explosion of light and metal. The Phoenix moved swiftly, its weapons firing in rapid succession, sending shockwaves through the enemy fleet. The other ships followed suit, launching their own assaults, their combined firepower overwhelming the Council's defenses. Kane's heart raced as he watched the chaos unfold. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment when Earth would show the galaxy that they were no longer a footnote in history. The Council's arrogance had blinded them, and now they were paying the price. "All ships, stay in formation," Kane ordered. "We need to keep the pressure on them. No mercy." As the battle raged on, the Phoenix moved with precision, its crew working like a well-oiled machine. Kane's mind was sharp, his every move calculated. But even with all their preparation, the Council wasn't going down without a fight. Their ships were powerful, their tactics ruthless, but Earth had something they hadn't counted on: unity. The people of Earth, the colonies, the exiles, they were all in this together now. And together, they were unstoppable. The enemy fleet began to break apart, their ships scattering as the Phoenix and the rest of Earth's fleet pursued them relentlessly. The Council had underestimated Earth's will, and now they were being forced to pay for it. Kane could see it in the faces of his crew, the same look of determination he felt in his own chest. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for a future where Earth would stand tall among the stars, a future where no one could ever silence them again. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the last of the Council's ships fell, crumpling into the void of space. The battlefield was silent now, the dust of battle hanging in the cold expanse. "We did it," Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. Kane took a deep breath, his gaze still fixed on the emptiness of space. "This is just the beginning. The galaxy won't let us go so easily. But today, Earth has shown them our strength. Today, we take back what is ours." The crew erupted in cheers, but Kane remained calm, his mind already moving to the next phase. The galaxy would never forget what had just happened, and neither would Earth. With their enemies defeated, Earth's empire was no longer a dream. It was reality. The rise of humanity had begun, and the stars would never be the same again.